I wrote a book in 100 days. It's a fantasy book that spans about 400 pages or 100,000 words. Well, hello there, I'm Détroit. You might know my drawings, which are what I make my videos out of, but that's not all I do. I write a lot as well. I have written hundreds of thousands of words for different web novels, short stories, and so on. First off, I will talk about stats, how I keep track of my progress in a neat-looking spreadsheet. Secondly, I will talk a bit about what I use to write, my tools, the software I use, and so on. If you're only interested in part of what I'm going to say, you can look at the chapters in the bar down below. For now, let's start with progress tracking. I have kept a spreadsheet of my progress day by day, and since I like light programming, I use the full extent of the Google Sheets program to monitor a few metrics that might interest you as well as graphs. First things first, on the left here you have every day that I wrote, with the date, the number of words in the morning and in the evening, the total of the day, and a commentary line for which scene I was working on. To show the stats better, I color-coded the total amount of words. When I don't write, or less than 20 words, the cell is black. Then we get to red below 100, pink red below 500, then it's orange below 750, then blue, and finally green when it's above 2000 words, which is kinda rare. You can note that this all starts on the 1st of March, since at the end of February I wasn't writing, but making the plot and the outline of my novel. This is why in total the first full draft took me 124 days, which you can see in the cell right here. However, when discarding all the days I didn't write, for example when I was on holiday and stuff, you get this cell, which shows it took 97 days of active writing, or 78% of it. With all of that in mind, let's look at this block of cells. These are our mean stats. Taking all 124 days into account, I, on average, wrote 804 words per day, which is really good for an amateur like me. However, when you take into account only the days I actually wrote, it reaches 1025 words per day. The maximum amount of words I wrote in a single day is 2348, which is about 10 pages. However, at one point, there was an event by a French writer, YouTuber and streamer, Christelle Le Bailly, called Fight for Words, in which the goal is to write the most during a whole weekend. I smashed that event, and managed an incredible 5,461 words. I have never written that much in a single day before, ever. It took like 7 hours on a Saturday to write this much though, so it's a one-off thing. I can't pull that off often at all. So far we have a number of cool stats. Let's keep going with this graph, which shows the amount of words I wrote per day, in blue, and the red line shows the total amount of words for the story. The goal with this graph is to show a good balance of what I can achieve. You can see that the curve is rather linear, especially if you ignore this week of holidays or the huge bump during the writing challenge I mentioned before. I also have a similar graph here too, which shows the same thing but also shows how many words I wrote in the morning and in the evening. I don't know about you, but my productivity really differs in the morning versus the night. I always prefer doing stuff early, and if you look at this graph showing the percentage of work in the morning, in blue, especially in the beginning of the project, I was mostly writing early in the day. However, during the last few months, it's changed a bit to writing in the evening. In fact, I ended up writing 47% of the book in the morning only. This is mainly due to watching Twitch at night for work sessions. A lot of streamers will offer writing streams where you type during half an hour, then a break, and so on. This helped me be more regular and making writing a habit, but it shifted my writing hours to be later than usual. Alright, so I talked about the averages previously, let's get back to them. Why are they helpful? Well, knowing how many words I usually type in a day provides a sort of goal that I can strive to surpass. Basically, it feels like a game, and every day you try to beat your high score. Additionally, I looked a lot at this table right here. Now, since I'm finished, this table only shows zeros everywhere, but here is an example. This table shows you how many days I would need to finish the book according to different counts of words per day. For example, writing only 250 words per day means a 100,000 words book takes 400 days. On the other hand, in the impossible case that I could write 2,000 words every day, it takes less than 2 months. This is again a gamification of the process. By setting yourself a goal of finishing by, let's say, September 1st, you can see how many words you would need per day. Or you can see how much sooner you can finish by only typing 100 more words every day. Now let's move on to this set of cells in the right. These are the chapters I wrote and their completion. Once I finished a writing session, I updated the words per chapter, which I then added to the total count. With these, I can obtain the following stats. My chapters are averaging at 4,217 words and are spread like this on this graph. This is helpful to decide if a chapter is too short or too long. For example, for my original goal of 100,000 words, I knew the 23 chapters had to be all about 4,545 words on average. And finally, we can talk about the total word counts. I have a few of them. The first count on the left shows how many words total represent the global project. These include everything I typed during the outlining phase before writing, as well as everything I wrote every day. The second count is the same without the planning phase, so only what I wrote during these 124 days. And finally, the total chapter count shows only the words that I kept in the chapters, which totaled up at 96,999. Because some days I would type stuff, and the next day I would modify them, sometimes removing stuff. Basically, during this first draft, about 1200 words didn't make it. And the final element of this spreadsheet, the simplest but the strongest for the mental, is the large percentage color-coded to become greener and greener as the goal is approached. Simply seeing this number jump up every day made continuing more worth it. It's so simple, but it does wonder for motivation. Before we move on to the tools and softwares I use to write, I want to mention my second best tip for motivation, which is kinda similar. Next to my desk, taped to the wall, I have this simple sheet of paper with two grids. The first grid has 100 cells. Every time my word count would reach another 1000, you cross a new cell. The second grid is about the same, with crosses for days I wrote successfully. The goal is simple: try to not break the chain. When you have a whole week of crosses, you want to keep crossing cells. This is a simple tip, but super effective whenever you want to create a new habit. It gives you a small goal every single day instead of focusing on the bigger thing, and for writing, this is absolutely key. We are now into part 2 of this video, the technical aspect of how I wrote this book in 100 days. First, let's talk about the hardware. My keyboard is a Logitech MK295 keyboard that I've had for more than 4 years. It's nothing fancy, it's $40 with the mouse included. My point is that you don't need fancy tech at all. While on the hardware, I should mention that I use 2 monitors for writing, one with my current scene open, and another monitor with the rest of my project so I can quickly look up stuff I already wrote. And this way of working with 2 windows comes from the software I'm using. You can write with any text software you have. A lot of people are fully satisfied with things like Microsoft Word or even Google Docs. I, on the other hand, like something a bit more fancy, but that is also fully free. It's called YWriter. It's an open source software designed for writing. It's especially good for plotters like me. This software partitions your writing into a multitude of documents neatly arranged in this window. On the left, you have a list of chapters you can rearrange by a click and drop, or rename, or write a full description for. For every chapter, you then have all the scenes inside, which you can fully customize. Every scene comes with a box for writing, one for a description, and a couple useful tabs. I mostly use the writing and the description box. The description is a way for me to write in a couple words what the scene is about, what should happen, etc., so I can just glance at it and keep writing. The tabs at the top of this window are a bit overkill for me, but they can be really useful for people too. The Detail tab can structure your scene by defining whether it is an action or reaction scene, what the goal is, etc. The Character tab allows you to make character sheets with a description, their bio, or even add a picture if you want. Then, for each scene, you simply have to drag and drop which character is present, and you can keep track of everybody and their location. Yes, location. You can do the same thing with places in the Location tab. I'm sure you get the gist of it, so I'll skip the explanation of the Items tab. What I want to mention though is the Time tab, which allows you to date the events of your scene. For example, let's say it takes place on July 21st and spans 3 hours. Or alternatively, you can set it to display how long it's been since the beginning of your novel. All of these tools can be really helpful for plotters to keep track of everything in your novel. You can even use it during editing phases, as you can toggle each scene status between outline, draft, first edit, second edit, and done. Or you can mark if the scene represents notes, or a to-do list, or unused. All of these can be configured for your export once you're done, exporting every scene of every chapter except the scenes marked unused, for example. Within the confines of the software, you can also set your writing goal, display your typing speed, or look at the backlog of everything you've written. I am genuinely loving this free open source software. They don't pay me, but I'll happily do their promo anyway, since I've been using it for more than 5 years for every writing project I have. Another simple but powerful thing this software does is save all your scenes and chapters in different RTF files. In effect, this does nothing, but try to scroll through a Word document with 400 pages and you will see the hell it is. By partitioning the files, it always runs smooth, no matter how long your project is, which is great. And this is how I wrote a book in 100 days. And it wasn't even hard to do. I planned and prepared for a while, then I simply wrote. Every day or so, a few words go a long way. Using colorful graphs and spreadsheets to turn the process exciting every single day. Using small tricks to give myself simple goals instead of agonizing over the work left. Because I just did it, I believe everybody can write a book. And you don't even have to aim for a 400-pager like I did. Most crime novels, for example, are about 50 to 60,000 words, which is possible in only a couple months if you're motivated. I hope you found this video useful. If you want more writing content like this, tell me in the comments. I have a lot I could say about writing tips, or how to plot and outline for example, but I can't know if you're interested unless you tell me. For now though, I'll probably go back to drawing content for a while, so subscribe and look out for that. Bye!